just nice having a manual. You know, in the same way, it's nice to just open the window instead of turning on the air conditioner. You know, I like great American road cars, and this is one of them. You got a manual transmission. You can take your family. You've got enough horsepower to keep you entertained, and enough practicality to keep the family happy. You know. Welcome to another episode of Jay Leno's Garage, a car featuring today a 2022 Cadillac CT5-V Series Blackwing. This car has a V8 engine, 668 horsepower, and the most amazing part is a manual transmission, which is fantastic. You know, if you had told me 25 years ago, in the future, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Mercedes-Benz, Corvettes, they'll all be automatic. The only high-performance car you can get with a stick is a Cadillac. Oh, you're crazy. Get out of here. It just seemed unbelievable. But, you know, you have a legitimate competitor here to the BMWs and all the European sedans, and it's American-made. I have a 2012. I love it. Mine is a 6-speed, 540 horsepower, just a fantastic car. Basically, it's a 4-seater Corvette, which is sort of the similar thing here. Mine was the 2nd series. This is the 4th series. I've got a gentleman here who is the chief engineer for Cadillac. This is what I like about American manufacturing now. They're all engineers, you know. When I was growing up, it was a GT package. You got wheels and stripes, and you got a cartoon character on the door, but it's just basically a sedan. Even Mary Barra, the president of GM, is an engineer. Mark Royce, all the guys at Nürburgring every weekend, just beating the hell out of these things, trying to get them to perform. And it's great to see. I mean, American cars now, I think, are more than equal, and in many cases better than a lot of the European stuff. We have sort of a complex about that, you know. And Cadillac has completely changed its image, you know. It used to be, well, you know what a Cadillac from the 60s was. Now you've got a true high-performance sedan that is really a lot of fun to drive, and don't knock it till you try it. We'll take it out on the road and you'll see what I'm talking about. Let me bring in the gentleman who is the chief engineer for a Cadillac, Tony Roma. Tony, come on in. Nice to see you, my friend.
Nice to see you, too. Cool.
We worked together like 16 years ago on my Tornado and a bunch of other projects. And so this is the crowning glory. Nice job. So is this basically the engine from the ZR1, the last generation ZR1 Corvette, right?
So this is very related to what we used in the Z06 Corvette from the 7th generation, and we used a similar version in the CT5-V, the last generation of our larger sedan. So this one, we've gotten a little more power out of it. This is 668 horsepower, so it's the highest we've ever certified it. But
is this 7-speed or 6-speed?
6-speed.
A 6-speed transmission, okay.
Yep.
Was that a hard sell for the kind of, they always call them the bean counters, if they even have those guys anymore, to go with a manual transmission? I mean, nobody does it. It's just for enthusiasts, because let's face it, in the world we live in, dual clutches can shift faster, but this is more driver involvement, this is more fun. How much of a percentage of Cadillac is the manual transmission?
So you asked if it was a hard sell. Honestly, yes. You know, it's a lot of money to certify, and the manufacturing complexity and all those things. What really sold our management, a bunch of us enthusiasts really understood that there is a segment of the market, you mentioned it a second ago, most other manufacturers have walked away from manual transmissions. And if you're a real driving enthusiast, the engagement you get from that, you know, act of shifting and choosing which gear, and, you know, just a little bit more involved in the process. These days, like you said, the cars aren't faster. So this car, unfortunately, is not faster. The 10-speed auto is just incredible. It shifts so fast. The gear splits are so small. So we expected it to be around 25% of the volume, and in our pre-orders, we've been taking orders on this car for about 3 months, and we're over 50% right now.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, which is incredible. So.
And the great thing about a manual transmission, it is the best anti-carjacking device you can get, because most of these stupid carjackers can't drive a stick, don't know how to drive a stick. They get in and they just run away from the car. So it's the greatest. I'll bet your insurance is probably lower with a manual because the theft rate is lower. They look and they go, oh, it's got a stick. Let's get out of here. You know, you know, to me, I think it's great because the Cadillac has just changed its image because, you know, everybody is, you know, Porsche builds a 911, and they can't make a car above the 911 because the fans go nuts. Harley Davidson makes a V-twin that sounds like this, and they go to, you know, I credit BMW for coming out with their inline and chain drive, which getting away from shaft. You know, you take a chance and you just try something new. And that's what I love about Cadillac, how the brand has reinvented itself. I mean, people that drive these are just amazed at how fast they are and how well they handle. And you always say, oh, it's BMW. And BMW is an excellent car, obviously, but you've got a more than worthy competitor here, and it's pretty amazing. And you're about, what, 20, 30 grand cheaper?
Oh, yeah, at least, honestly. Yeah.
So give us some more facts here. There's no two-door available, right? Just four-door.
No, this is the only body style we make in the CT5 right now. We get a lot of questions about wagons. I love the wagon. We used to make a coupe.
The wagon was cool.
Oh, the wagon was awesome. I'm a card-carrying member of the wagon fan club.
Right.
But, you know, right now the SUV market is kind of eating the sedan market. That's not a secret. So the fact that we continue to make these sedans, I think, is a testament to what Cadillac wants to be, and we want to be relevant in this segment, like you mentioned. And we really have reinvented ourselves. It's almost 20 years we've been doing V-Series, and I've been involved since the beginning. I've been lucky enough to be part of this, and it's been a great ride to represent kind of America and build cars that we want to drive. So. And
the thing is, I predict this will be a collector car because sadly, this is the last generation of big V8 high horsepower until we go electric. But I think the value of these will increase, especially the ones with the manual. They'll be the ones that the real enthusiasts will drive. I mean, it's nice that they recognize the fact that, because I've driven the dual clutch, and it's just bang, bang. I mean, it's so quick. But there is a level of involvement here, and you enjoy yourself. You know, all the fun is between 40 and 120 maybe. And even 120 is pushing it. Most people, it's zipping around through the road, just having a good time going through the gear. You know, I'm sort of tired of cars that go 280. Well, you can't do that anywhere. You just go to jail. You're in prison. You lose your license for the rest of your life. You're going 280 on a public road. So you just have something that's fun and you can really enjoy. I imagine a lot of the big changes since mine, the 2012, were probably in suspension and.
Yeah, this car is the body structure. The things you'll notice when you drive it are incredibly stiffer. We've worked a lot on that to get the dynamics and how quick it responds when it turns. These new Michelin tires are just incredible. This is the first time we've offered carbon ceramic brakes. These are Brembo CCB brakes. They're 404 millimeter rotors. They're ginormous.
These are the biggest brakes ever on a Cadillac.
Yeah, that we've ever used, for sure. They're huge. It's got an electronic limited slip differential in the rear now, which really helps for stability and traction. Yeah, we talked about the 6-speed. There's a lot of enhancements even to the transmission and the clutch and the driveline since 2012, little things we've done for refinement. The engine is it's just incredible. It's a work of art, really. We benchmarked a lot of our competitors, including like Ferrari, for responsiveness, you know, how fast the engine makes torque when you hit the throttle. And, you know, as of my knowledge, this is still the fastest responding engine of anything we've ever benchmarked. You touch the throttle and it makes torque like instantly, and that's what you get from 6.2 liters with a supercharger. We've got our built-in performance data recorder. You can see the small camera, so it puts the telemetry from the computer up on the screen, and you can do that or not. So even if you're just going down a nice mountain road, you can record what's going on and get the audio and all that integrated. Yeah, this is. Does
this have the Valet record mode? Yep. Which is the funniest thing. You can see these on YouTube. What it is when you put it in Valet mode, you give it to the Valet, it automatically records everything the Valet is doing in the car. And you see guys go out and just burning rubber, doing awful things to your car, and they deny it. And of course, you play it back. But it's a good feature. Yeah. Do you guys bristle when people call it a four-door Corvette?
I think that's an obvious comparison. I mean, no, I wouldn't say we bristle.
Well, because basically it is. It's just a more, quote, sensible version.
Yeah.
You can, I mean, the fun of having performance cars is sharing it with someone. You know, I got to drive one of those BAC monos, which was fun, but you're by yourself. You can't share it with anybody. I mean, that's half the fun, is seeing your buddy's face light up when you put it all the way to the floor. Well, let's open the hood. Let's see this engine.
Sure. 6.2 liter direct injected intercooled supercharger, 668 horsepower.
Right.
Yep. Got the tower-to-tower brace for chassis stiffness, like we talked about.
Yeah, this is, I always like these. This is always, I remember just being, you know, when you're 14 years old, there are certain things just impress you. And I remember with the Ford Falcon, when they raced it, they called this the Monte Carlo bar because they raced the Ford Falcon with a 289 at Monte Carlo. And I thought, ooh, my mom has a Falcon. You know, I got to get one of these Monte Carlo bars. You know? But yeah, just an incredible piece of bracing there. Looks like a Corvette motor.
Oh, come on, it says Cadillac.
It does say Cadillac on it. And I'm a huge Cadillac fan. You know, I've got a 1918 Cadillac, a 25 Cadillac. You know, it's one of those brands that's had the sort of up and down. When I look at my 1918 Cadillac, it's got dual water pumps on each side. It's a V8. Everybody thinks Henry Ford invented the V8, but Cadillac had it 15 years before they did.
Right.
And it is just an engineering marvel. It's really what made Cadillac. It's smooth, and you know, when everybody else had 4 cylinders and Model Ts, this was and it's just a fabulous car to drive. 4-wheel brakes, which sounds silly now, but in 1925 that was a huge deal. You know, so there's a great history there.
So in seriousness, this engine was developed with this application in mind, right? So I know, you know, people call it a 4-door Corvette, and like we said, that is an obvious comparison, but we really did have a hand in specifying this engine. So it was also used in the Corvette, but there were a lot of the specifications for how smooth, like I mentioned, how fast it responds, all those things. So it really was engineered with this in mind. It's
so that's
not like
a little bit
just
of bristling.
Well, just it's explaining the choices.
No, it's great. It's great. It's great. I like that. I mean, I just like the fact that they decided to build a sports car, because I imagine that's a huge leap for a company. You're used to building a standard of luxury and, you know, brocade interior and all that kind of stuff, and then you make the decision, we're going to go for a different, we have a market, we own it, we own the segment, now let's try to get into, I mean, that, to me, that takes a lot of guts to make that, because a lot of companies don't. They just keep building the same thing, and then they, hey, I'm out of business. What happened? You know. So no, I think it's great. I think it's great. Okay, let's shut this, and let's go around to the trunk, see what the back of this looks like.
So it's got active exhaust, and the new integration for this car is the valves are variable. So before we either had them opened or closed, so you didn't have much flexibility, but now our engineers are able to kind of move them for the different modes as you go from tour to track to sport.
Right.
So it really does give it different sound character. You'll hear all that when you drive it. Yep, back seats flip down, so if you want to use it for hauling anything, you know, it's not the most practical car in the world, but it's better than
Is there
Corvette.
a spare tire or no?
No, no spare tire.
Yeah.
Right.
You get that little can of Ready Whip or whatever it is, it just kind of...
That's right.
Just, yeah, I've never seen one of those work, but that's every manufacturer.
Yep, that's down under the load floor.
Cool,
yep.
Very nice. What does it weigh, do you know?
It's right around 4,000 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's right in the market.
Yeah. It's actually considerably lighter than most of our competitors now that they've all moved to all-wheel drive. So we're actually, Cadillac's the lightweight now.
Well, that's right. This is rear-wheel drive, isn't it? Which I understand why you'd want it maybe in the Northeast but I love rear-wheel drive. I mean, just for steering and handling.
Yep, and that's exactly why we chose to stay this way, because if you want a precise, nimble handling car, those aren't attributes you normally use when you're describing an all-wheel drive car, right? They go really fast, they're great, but yeah. Is
this carbon fiber or
that's all
fiber
carbon.
look?
No, that's real carbon.
Now they have kosher style. It's not really kosher. It's real carbon fiber.
And the seat back is as well, which is just gorgeous, and the little V accent in it. That's obviously an option, but it's just gorgeous.
Well, that's what I like. That's what I mean about not having just a stripe and wheel package. It doesn't look like carbon fiber. It is carbon fiber, because you get to go, why have it if it's not?
Right.
Yeah. You're just trying to fool people.
So one of the new changes this year, you can see the steering wheel. It's got direct access to what we call V mode, and the rocker switch on the right-hand side.
I like the sporty steering wheel. You have all your controls right on the wheel. Okay?
Yep, so this is new for the CT5-V Blackwing. You can get access to V mode, which is configurable for the exhaust sound that you like, the different shift patterns and things. And then on the right-hand side, the rocker switch lets you have quick access to the different performance traction modes. So if you're on track and you decide, you know, hey, I want to do my warm-up lap in mode 3,
right.
And then as you get comfortable, you want to click your way up. You don't have to fumble around for switches or anything.
So what do you have? You have like a tour mode or economy, right?
Mm-hmm. Tour, sport, and then track. Yep.
Sport and track, okay.
And then in track mode, you've got 5 different settings. Think of it was inspired by what we did in World Challenge with the race car. So there's 5 different settings for traction and stability to basically let you open up the parameters to let the car slide around a little bit more before you turn everything off.
Right.
To give you more flexibility. And then the last 2 modes are specifically tuned like a race car for corner exit traction, and so they're actually trying to help you make the car go faster instead of being there to kind of rein you in and give you stability. So it's something that we do that really is driver oriented.
Yeah, very cool. And this gamble seems to have paid off, doesn't it? I mean, it's really changed the image of Cadillac in the last, I guess, decade, isn't it?
Well, we're coming up on 20 years, right?
2020, I guess
2004
I guess
was
right.
the first one, and yeah, it's totally transformed the brand. It's been a big part of the image. You know, people see a V Series now and they know what it is.
Right.
I tell people when we did the first one, people said, "Well, that's interesting. What did Cadillac do?" When we did the second one, it was like, "Oh, you guys did it again. That's interesting." And then really, it was when we did the 3rd gen. People would, the spy photographers would follow us around and people were clamoring and talking about us. So this one, it was really refreshing. Everybody expected it, they were waiting for it. When we put up the pre-orders, we sold out almost a year's worth of production in about a day and a half.
Wow, that's great, yeah. And what's top speed on this?
So we haven't certified it yet, but it's over 200 miles an hour.
It is, wow, okay.
Yep.
200-mile-an-hour Cadillac going down Collins Avenue, Miami Beach. That would have been, this would have been impossible.
Yep.
30, 40 years ago. Well, very impressive. Can we take it for a ride?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's give this a shot. Sounds good.
Yeah. I love the exhaust.
Sounds like a Cadillac. Well, it feels, first impression is, people used to say, it feels very European, but it does because it just has that, you know, Americans used to be about horsepower and heating and ventilation and not so much about suspension, but now they are. Now it's a complete package, which is, I love the transformation of Cadillac. I like what they've become. They've become a sportier brand. It must be funny, those awkward days of when the old guy comes in looking for the brocade interior, and because I imagine it's probably the only manufacturer, isn't it, where the average age has gone down.
It's gone way down,
Yeah, even Corvette was creeping up, 60, 62, 58, as opposed to 30s or 40s. You know, all the guys, I want round taillights. What the hell's my round? Bono. So you've got to placate the existing customer while bringing in new customers, and this is such a massive leap, and it takes such a chance, but I'm glad it's paid off.
Yeah, like you said, the average age, and when you really get into V, and then what we've seen already with V Blackwing is the average age is yet again lower, right?
Right.
So as a brand, we're getting younger, more affluent buyers, which of course is the holy grail, is what everybody's going for. But then when you get into the V Blackwing, it's more than 10 years younger than the average Cadillac buyer that's coming in and buying one of these.
Well, I'm confident that the electrification of GM is going to be successful. I drove that new electric Hummer, and I am not a Hummer guy. I mean, it was never my thing. I thought it was a bit overdone. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, it's a little smaller. It's 1,000 horsepower.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's like watching a building move. It's like 0 to 60 in 3 seconds or under. Yeah. I was stunned at how good it was, how quiet it was, and of course some of the unique features, the crab walk and all that kind of stuff. It's interesting. We're kind of in the same position we were in about 1907. Is it going to be electric? Is it going to be steam? Is it going to be gas? You know,
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, you think about hydrogen fuel cells, full electric, hybrid, diesel. There's so many technologies right now. It's an interesting time.
Yeah, it really is. It really is like that period where they weren't quite sure which way it was going to go back in the day.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. I think we've got a winning strategy, so I'm excited to see people get into these products.
And this is the last gas from the great V8, isn't it?
It is, and that's one of the things we talked about, the manual. That's why it was important that we, I'm so proud of this car as representing kind of the peak of this technology. Right,
right, yeah.
Well integrated. It's just fantastic. It's quiet when you want it to be quiet. It's super fast when you want it to be fast.
Well, I'm just amazed at all the features that you. I mean, there's a lot of electronic stuff here. I like this my mode configuration. You can just put in how much steering you want, how much road feel you want, how much brake feel, engine noise. I mean, it's.
And if you go to the V button on the steering wheel, then there's another menu that comes up that lets you choose the performance traction.
Right.
And if it was an automatic, you'd get to choose shift pattern. And then that's for PTM. Yep, the performance traction management.
Okay.
Yeah, and then like we talked, a 200-mile-per-hour car that has heated and ventilated seats, right? I mean.
Right. Well, you get $250,000 to $350,000 performance for about $100,000, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of this can equal pretty close to what Lamborghini, Ferrari, Corvette could do.
Honestly, I think, and we see this when we go to track days or different club events, for the way most people drive, this car is more capable than most drivers, honestly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you give somebody a Lamborghini or this, I'm not sure most people are going to go faster in a Lamborghini than they are in this.
That's so true. I always remember the classic example of that was, I like to ride motorcycles. And I remember at the rock store, one of these guys came up, I don't know if it was Jay Springsteen, but one of these famous 883 Harley. Just a regular Harley Sportster, nothing. And everybody's on there, Kawasaki, YZ, Suzuki, Yamaha, whatever, all the cafe bikes with the carbon fiber and 200 horsepower. And he takes them up the Snake, which is, and he's literally banging the handlebars on the ground.
Dragging them. Yeah.
And
on a sports
nobody came up with them. And it's the same thing. Cars are so much better than the people that drive them now.
Well, and that's really why these tires, like I mentioned from Michelin, these things are so incredible. They have so much grip, and that's why we do what we do with the performance traction, because we want the performance to be accessible, right? And so we use the electronics to help people ease into it, because honestly, most people have never driven a 668 horsepower hot rod. I mean, it can be a little intimidating.
I'm astounded at people who buy a car like this. And I went down to Discount Tire, and they had these tires for $110 a piece. Okay, do you buy shoes that are a size too small because they're cheaper? I mean, they have no idea. You know what thing I love about Michelin, and it sounds dumb, the tires are all round. I mean, they're perfectly round. Whenever I put Michelins on, very rarely do I have to use wheel weights, because they're the same all the way around. I finally found one. It was from the 30s or 40s, a tire shaver.
Yeah.
And because when you have the older cars like Duesenbergs and Packard stuff, you buy these Denim or the Denham, whatever, these kind of just tires for old cars. And I had a shimmy, and I couldn't figure out what I put a stabilizer on it. Well, it turns out I had a knot of rubber.
Oh, sure.
And
so you had to true up the tire.
Yeah, it just goes around, and it took a pound of rubber off. It just goes around.
My goodness.
And I said, oh, okay, that's a problem.
Wow.
So it's having a big knot.
Right. You're lumping over everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Michelin even they have this incredible technology as a development engineer, where if we're out tuning the car, and we see something about the tire that we want to change, and we get deep into the details of belt angles and different compounds across the tread pattern, they can make us a prototype tire and deliver it to us at a test session within 2-3 days.
Wow.
Which is incredible. We can call them and say, here's what we want to change on the tire, and they have this prototype technology where they will literally have a cured back we mounted on the car like 3 days later. That's incredible. That used to take months. You know,
Right,
to think about, engineer it, make it, put it all together, get back to us, and by the time you drive it months later, you're like, what did I? What was it I didn't like?
Yeah. It's just nice having a manual. You know, in the same way, it's nice to just open the window instead of turning on the air conditioner. You know, you just want to get back to basics. Now, they used to have a 7-speed manual with Corvette. What happened to that? Could it not take the power?
No, it's really just the packaging to fit that extra length in the tunnel here was just a little bit too much. So.
And I imagine 6 top ratio is probably the same as 7 was anyway.
It's probably pretty close. So we engineer, we look at all the gear ratios, fit them for the track and fuel economy, and balance all the different. When you've got 6 ratios, you can make the car do everything well. So there's no real compromises.
Wow, that's very nice. It does great.
Yep.
Boy, it really feels planted.
Yeah.
You know, I just drove in today in a '57 Chrysler Imperial. So it's one extreme or the other.
Right.
You know, back in the day, it was sort of you wanted complete absence of road feel, whether it was Cadillac, Imperial, or Lincoln. The idea was you didn't want to know. You were driving a feather bed. You know, you just sort of went like this and touched the brake and all that kind of stuff. You know, whereas this.
So when you're accelerating in the manual, one of the things we do is called no lift shift. So if you leave your foot on the floor, it knows when you're pushing the clutch, and so if you're high enough in the engine range and you do a shift, it'll keep the wastegate closed and keep making boost.
Should I try that?
Sure. Yep. So that makes the engine even more responsive because it keeps it from falling in boost.
And supercharging, obviously, over turbocharging, because obviously there's no lag, and you've got that.
Yeah, different applications. So in the CT5-V Blackwing, we use a twin turbo V6.
Right.
It gets you a little better specific output. The engine doesn't have to work as hard to get the power to the ground. But yeah, supercharging is the ultimate for responsiveness.
Right.
And we offer a manual in the CT4 as well. So.
Have you been to Nürburgring with this thing?
I didn't go with this car, but yeah, I've been there many times over the years. So with COVID and everything, last year was a little weird for everybody. And
oh, it's fascinating though, Nürburgring. It's a public road. That's what people think. It's a racetrack, but it's a public. So when you have an accident, it's like you had an accident on a public road.
They send you an invoice for the Armco if you bend the Armco.
Right,
so
right.
I've had to unfortunately sign those for incidents we've had over the years. They charge you by the meter.
Oh, yeah, it's expensive. Isn't it?
It's very expensive. Yeah, no, I love that place. It should be on every car person's bucket list.
But in Germany, you can't change a thing, can you?
No.
I mean, if you owned this car in Germany, you couldn't suddenly put another set of wheels on it from the manufacturer, right?
So in the winter time in Germany, you're required to run, because these are summer tires, you're required to run a winter rated tire.
Right.
So you would put like a Pirelli Soto Zero or a Michelin winter rated tire on it. But other than that, yeah, they're very restrictive about what you can do.
And you can't have a dent in your car either.
Well, yeah, they have inspections, and yeah, you're required to keep your maintenance much higher than most folks in the U.S. would be used to.
Well, you know, horsepower cures a lot of hills, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Brightens up your day.
Yeah, absolutely. Just when I walk out and start this thing every morning, I've been driving one of these for a while. And yeah. It just, like you said, it just brightens your mood.
I mean, I'm old enough to remember the days if you got the high performance option, you couldn't get air conditioning.
Right.
You couldn't get,
Right.
I mean, the amazing thing is how safe cars have become. I mean, I see cars, SUVs in a ball on the highway. Kids said, "Hey, Dad, can you come get me?" I had an accident. I remember in high school, kids got killed in a parking lot going 20 miles an hour. The steering column crushing your chest or something.
Yeah, it is amazing. That's one of the reasons why whenever I tell somebody this car weighs 4,000 pounds, they're like, what? It's like, well, man, if you looked at what's engineered in here and all the airbags and all the equipment, it's amazing. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people have taken that for granted, though. And you watch the way some people drive, and they're, distracted doing
Yeah.
63 things going down the highway at 90 miles an hour. You know, when I was younger, 90 miles an hour, you were paying attention. That was, you know, that was going, right?
Well, it just feels firmly planted. That's just what I like. It just gives, you know, just...
This has the latest version of our MR magneto rheological dampers, right? So the metal particles suspended in the fluid. So we use the accelerometers on the suspension now to predict what's happening, and that's made it even faster. It's made the software able to calculate what the suspension needs better and react faster.
Right.
It's incredible. That's a lot of what you feel, how the car doesn't move, the body doesn't move, it just sort of reacts to what's going on. But then when you turn the wheel, it does it urgently, is the way I describe it.
This only comes in a two-wheel version, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We do make, in the V series with the twin-turbo V6, we make an we make a two-wheel drive and all-wheel drive, right? But in the Blackwing, like we talked about earlier, it's a rear-wheel drive only.
And what's the engineer's definition of the difference between all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive?
In my mind, the difference is whether it's selectable or not. So like a truck where you could put it in two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive versus like in the CT5, the center differential is always engaged. So that, to me, that's the way I put it in my head.
That's all-wheel drive.
Yeah, I consider that all-wheel drive. It's just a matter of what torque split, you know, how much do we send to the front versus the rear. And then we use the electronic limited slip diff with our all-wheel drive system, so it can send power, you know, many different places. It's really super capable.
Oh, this thing it really handles very nicely. I mean, it really handles nicely. It's an exciting car to drive. You know, I'm just old enough to remember. It just makes me laugh that it's a Cadillac. You know, the first thing I did when I made money in show business was I bought my dad a Cadillac, you know. And, you know, that was, because I always said, Dad, we'll make a big get you a Cadillac. Yeah, you'll get me a Cadillac. Yeah, sure you will. Just pay your bills. You know. So I bought him a white Cadillac with the red velour interior, a 76 model. You know, it looked like Elvis's coffin in that thing. And, you know, he was so proud that my mother was so embarrassed. Whenever we would come to a stoplight, if people were looking at the car, my mother would roll down the window and she'd go, "We're not really Cadillac people. Our son gave us this." And then my dad would get mad. "We're driving a damn Cadillac. Of course we're Cadillac people." And then they'd start arguing and people would take off. But, he loved that thing, you know. I've said this a million times on the show, but it is funny. My dad said, "You know, Cadillac's the Rolls Royce of automobiles." I go, "Pop, it can't be the Rolls Royce of automobiles. It's a Cadillac."
It's the Cadillac of automobiles.
But I love the fact that they can have that image and they can have this one too. Yeah. And that's really, really impressive. Boy, this handles nicely.
Isn't it just so precise?
It's precise. I mean, I like great American road cars, and this is one of them. You got a manual transmission, you can take your family, you got enough horsepower to keep them entertained, and enough practicality to keep the family happy.
Yeah, this kind of road is exactly where this car is at home.
Right.
It's just...
Oh yeah, this is... You never feel like you're going to lose it. Boy, those brakes are really good.
Yeah.
It's funny, you know, young people have no idea what brake fade is because it doesn't exist anymore.
Right, basically.
I have a 55 Packard, and I was driving along Mulholland, and I'm just, you know, pushing it hard. And the stop sign, I put my foot, and it goes right to it, and I sail right through the stoplight. La la la! I'm like, ow, ow! I mean, it was like, oh my God, that was like, you know, you smell the, you know, you had what, 8-inch drums,
Right.
7 little tiny
drums.
drum brake. Oh my God, you got one panic stop.
Yeah.
You know, people talk about the 60s. You know, this is the golden age of muscle cars. The fact you can have a muscle car that's a family car, that's whatever you want it to be, you know.
People have no idea how much faster these cars are than any of those storied old muscle cars.
Well, I'll tell you something funny. You know, Tim Allen and I on the show, we got a 67 GTO, tri-power, you know, all the options. It wasn't automatic, but, you know, it was a high performance. And we got Nissan Altima V6 family, you know, just a family car, 4-door, and we drive, and the Altima blew the doors off. I mean, it was hilarious.
Yeah. People have no idea what their Econo box can blow the doors off most of their fast cars from when they were a kid. Doesn't this thing just sound ridiculous? I remember when we did the original, well, not the original, the ZR1, you know, the LT5, the 4-valve 5.7 liter, and we seriously had discussions back then about, 400 horsepower, that's just, you know, almost too much power. And you thought, you go back and drive one of those now, and they're great cars. My dad has one. And you drive it now, and like you're saying, you're like, really? This was too much power, huh? Like, it feels so tame compared to even this.
It's funny
thing.
how the advertising changed. You know, I've got a 64 rather Dodge Clara in there with a max wedge, 426, and a 4-speed. It sort of predates muscle era by a year or two. And the way it says in the road test, just because this car has electric windows and a little chrome button that automatically puts the top down, don't think that it's some effeminate vehicle. And no one will question your manhood when you drive it. And it goes on and on, like electric windows and an automatic top or some you know. It was just so funny to read. Yeah, these are the kind of roads where this car's a lot of fun. You can still be responsible. You can be a little faster than the speed limit perhaps, but not crazy, you know. And the car can more than handle it. You've got the braking to stop. You've got the handling.
Like I said, this car is home, right? This is what this car craves, and it begs you to do it. And all of the controls, the stiffness we put into the chassis, really just shine. You know, the MR dampers, the ELSD is back there working. You know, just giving you that little extra bit of stability.
But you know, it's funny because cars have always been fast, even from the beginning. It's really braking and handling where all the real change. I mean, you go back to 1910, you know, I've got a 1913 Mercer Raceabout, and it'll hit 100 miles an hour.
Right.
You're not going to stop anytime soon.
Right.
And you're not going to go around a corner necessarily. But, I mean, it's got the power, and you realize all the sophistication is really in the handling and the braking.
And tires, right? And that goes right in line with what you're saying. The tire technology. If you think about what this piece of rubber is engineered to do, that still blows me away. When we watch, we did a belt test of the tire, and if you watch it run a lap at the Nürburgring, and if you saw that before you went and drove the car on the track, you'd say, what the heck? You're asking that thing to do all this, and the way the sidewall works. And
like I said before, the people I know that buy performance cars and then put cheap tires on, what are you doing?
I know.
I mean, a car where you can never really reach its limits will always be entertaining.
Like we were talking before, what we do as engineers is try and make it as accessible as possible, because anybody can make a scary fast car, right? But the trick is to make a car that you feel comfortable exploring those limits. And I think you talk about a lot of those cars from the 50s and 60s, those things were scary fast. I mean, if you actually tried to go, 160 in a Corvette from that vintage with those little tires, that took some work.
I remember in 2002, I drove the pace car at Daytona, and that was the last year of the Firebird. So they brought out all the performance Firebirds, one of each model to take around the track, And I remember driving, the 455, I guess, from 73. I had my foot down and going to the banking. I'm hitting 110, like 109, 110, 110. The needle's going like this, and this thing is like I'm going, geez, really? I could barely hit 110 miles an hour in that thing. And on the banking, it was like, oh!
Yeah, those poor tires were probably complaining like crazy.
Oh, yeah. Well, Tony, thanks so much for, it is such a joy. I'm so proud of American manufacturing. I do like American stuff. I like that we can compete against the best the Europeans have to offer. We're the only country that, even when we're on the top, we're still underdogs, you know? It's like when Ford went to Le Mans, a $10 billion company versus a $5 million company, and we were the underdog. But somehow that's what we do. But I love the fact that American engineering is doing as well as it is, and as successful as it is. And this is really one of the great cars. You know, I'm just so impressed with how it handles and how it stops. So Tony, thank you very much, and I'm glad now that COVID has calmed down, we can ride the same car again.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, my friend. And test drive one of these. I think you'll like it. Come on, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Go!